we're going to talk about the avionics. Okay. Now, avionics is a special field in aerodynamics. It is basically aviation and electronics. So we'll be talking about the components used in for us, especially in model planes or in drones. And today's session is going to be conducted by Adityan. And after the session, we're going to have like a small discussion. Okay, it's not only going to be questions. We just want to discuss some other stuff with you. So I request you all to please not leave after the session is over, because we really need to build the foundation of our club, and we're going to start off with everything gradually. So we'll need your cooperation today. So Artin, over to you. Best of luck.
Thank you, thank you. All right, guys, welcome to this week's webinar where we'll be talking in detail about the electronics or basically the avionics that is in drones. So before we begin with that, we'll just go through, brush up on what we uh, covered last week. So we tried to answer three questions. What is a drone? What is the science behind drones? And what are the applications of drone last week? Where we understood that when we say drone, it does not mean something that is in the air. It could be a land-based vehicle, right? That is a UGV, or it could be a UAV, which is the drone that comes in everybody's mind when you something that comes in your mind when you picture a drone, right? And there is the underwater drones, right? Something that is very similar to submarines. And after that, we focused on our specific field here, which is a UAV or the unmanned aerial vehicle. Then we spoke on the types of UAVs, which is multi-rotor drones, fixed-wing drones, single-rotor drone, and fixed-wing hybrid drones. So multi-rotor drones are the one that you usually see around. Right? When people picture a drone in their mind, they're usually picturing a quadcopter, which is a multi-rotor drone with four rotors. Right? Then we have a fixed-wing drones that is basically something very similar in structure and shape to a typical aircraft. It has a long wing with a fuselage attached in between. And then we have single-rotor drones that are propelled by a single rotor, single main rotor, and a tail rotor. And we have fixed-wing hybrid VTOL, which is like the trade-off between multi-rotor and a fixed-wing drone that can hover in air and at the same time glide. Then we spoke on the science behind drones flight dynamics, basically. We covered how a helicopter is similar to a multi-rotor drone. We spoke about torque, angular momentum. So how we explained it was using a helicopter, how a helicopter flies. Right? We have the main rotor here. Can you see my pointer? Hold on. Yeah. Can you see my pointer here? The
Yes.
red, yeah, the red
Yeah,
mark
yeah.
here. Red mark here shows, red arrow here shows the direction of rotation of the main rotor. Okay. And the blue arrow here shows the direction of torque. Torque is basically any force that causes a rotation, right? And when the propellers rotate in the counterclockwise direction, we have a torque that is acting in the clockwise direction. So to counter this torque, we have a tail rotor that compensates this torque, right? Which provides thrust in the opposite direction of the torque. Then we covered the rotation of propellers. We told that adjacent motors always spin in the opposite direction. A and B here spin in the opposite direction, and always two opposite motors spin in the same direction. A and C spin the same direction. B and D spin in the same direction. A and C is clockwise, and B and D is counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. Then we covered the forces that are acting on a multi-rotor. This is thrust, that is a downward force, which is weight. So downward force is the weight, and then upward force is thrust. And if your drone is moving towards the right, always have drag that is towards the left in the opposite direction. Then we covered the types of motion in a drone. We have thrust, right? When you rise above the ground, you need a net upward force that is greater than your downward force, which is weight. That is thrust. Then we covered roll. the rotation around the front and back axis is called roll. Okay, if you draw a line draw a line between the nose of the drone to the tail of the drone, and then you cause rotation up about that axis. That is what we call as roll axis. To roll towards the left, that is our left when you're looking at it. To roll towards the left, the thrust is increased on the motors that are placed at the right side. So if you want to go to the left, like if you want the drone to roll towards the left, what we do is the thrust on the motors on the right side is increased. We also decrease the thrust on the motors on the left side so that the angular momentum is maintained. Then we have pitch. Pitch is basically the rotation around the side to side axis. Okay, if you draw hold on, I'll just show you the axis. Yeah, if you can you see my pointer here? If you draw a line between this point and you cause rotation about that axis, that is when you get a pitch motion. That your drone can either go forward or backward depending on it. So to pitch backward, that is towards us, towards your screen, what we do is the power to the motors at the front is increased. You see the red arrow here? That means your thrust or the power to the motors at the front is increased. And this creates a net forward force which causes the drone's nose to pitch up. Right? And when that happens, what happens? Your drone tries to move backward. So that was pitch. After pitch, we have yaw. So rotation around the vertical axis is called yaw. Okay, you can see the animation here on the top left corner, which says that how yaw action looks like. Right, the green arrow here says that the whole drone is going to rotate on its own axis, vertical axis, to yaw clockwise. Now this is very interesting. Listen to me very carefully if you missed last week's session. Okay, to yaw clockwise, that is in this direction, the arrow or green color arrow direction, we increase the thrust on the anti-clockwise moving motors. If you want a clockwise yaw, we increase the thrust on the anti-clockwise motors, and we decrease the thrust on the clockwise rotating motors to attain stability. Also to get a net upward or downward force to be a zero. Right? So let me go through that again. To get a clockwise yaw, you increase the thrust on the anti-clockwise rotating propellers or motors. To get a counterclockwise yaw, we increase the thrust on the clockwise rotating propellers. Now, is that clear to everyone? If anybody has any doubts, you can shoot right away. Any doubts? All right, we'll proceed. Cool. We'll proceed. Then we spoke about applications, about Austria's failed attack on Venice using balloons, unmanned balloons. Then we spoke about how long the US-Mexico border is and why drones were important, why surveillance or monitoring using drones were important during that time. And since then, since the year of 2006, the US Border Patrol Force have been using drones extensively at the US-Mexico border. And then we spoke about how the IAC and the government of India, along with the Survey of India, chalked out 1,000 crore plan to digitally map all of India. Right. Then we have how drones are used in law enforcement, especially during the COVID pandemic, where cops used drones for surveillance of regions under lockdown. Right. Then we have wildlife monitoring. We spoke about how the Karnataka Forest Department regularly uses drones to monitor forest areas for intrusions by poachers, and precision agriculture, or what we like to call it as precision agriculture as a service, where which includes crop spraying, multispectral imaging, where the drones fly above a farm or a crop area, and then the drones can image image the whole part of the land, and you get details about the crop health, the soil condition, the humidity at that particular point, and the irrigation details, all that kind of stuff you get. So use of drones for agriculture is something that has been coming up in the past few years. Then we spoke about drones in disaster management, and we specifically spoke about how in the year 2018, the floods that were in Kerala, a group of drone operators joined the State Department in search and rescue operations, where they flew their drones around affected regions and they spotted people and rescued them. Then we spoke about AWAM X, which developed an autonomous launch vehicle for satellites. We spoke about how drones can be used in inspection of solar panels, windmills, and pipelines. Then drone delivery. We also spoke about how Swiggy, Zomato, and Amazon Prime Air have been testing out drone delivery in multiple countries. Then we have this last slide where we spoke about how drones are used for sanitization during this COVID pandemic. Yeah, that's it for last week's webinar. So we'll be proceeding with what we have for today. So we'll be covering avionics. That is basically electronics that is there in UAVs or drones. Under avionics, we'll be covering three main points or three main questions. Right. Every webinar we will try to answer three questions. Right. Last week we tried to answer three questions. Similarly, this week we'll be answering what is a motor, what is an ESC, and what is a flight controller. Right. Without further ado, let's proceed with today's webinar. Okay, I have a question for everybody here. Carefully look at these images and tell me what is common in all of them. We'll go first. Mridul?
Motor.
Okay, of course they have a motor, but what type of motor is it?
Rotatory motor.
All motors are rotatory. Any other answer? Mohammed Sanif? Tarun, go ahead.
Is it electric motor?
It is electric motor. Okay. Anything else that is common?
Maybe brushless and
Correct. Correct. That's the answer. Brushless DC motors. All of them use brushless DC motors, unlike conventional brushed motors. Right. Modern day air conditioners use brushless DC motor. DVD writers and readers also use brushless DC motor. And the one that you see here on the right side, top right corner, is an electric blower that also uses a brushless DC motor. And something that came as a shocker to me was that submarines today also use brushless DC motor. Modern day submarines use brushless DC motors to propel themselves underwater. Then we have Aether 450, which is something very common in India these days, especially in Bangalore. And it is also powered by a brushless DC motor. And what you see here, the bottom left corner, is the future of drone racing. Right. Although this is not something that is going to be unmanned, but people call it drone, and it is like the F1 racing of drones. It can go up speeds of hundreds of kilometers, top speeds of hundreds of kilometers, and it has coaxial motors, and all these are brushless DC motors. So that is what is common in all these images. So let us understand how a brushless DC motor works. Before that, we'll just look at the parts that is there in a brushless DC motor. So a brushless DC motor or a BLDC motor consists of two main parts, the stator and the rotor. For this illustration, the rotor is a permanent magnet. The rotor, in this rotor, you can see NS, right? N stands for north and S stands for south, north and south poles. And the stator consists of coils arranged as shown in the picture. Okay, so these coils act as electromagnets when they're energized. We'll get to that part later when we understand the working of BLDC. Another part that is present in BLDC motor is the Hall sensor. The working of Hall sensor we'll get in detail in the next few slides. Now, when I say BLDC motors, there are two different types of BLDC motors. Okay. One is an in-runner type The other is an outrunner type. Can somebody tell me what is the difference looking at the images?
In the in runner, the rotatory part is inside, and in the out runner, the rotatory part is outside.
Exactly, exactly. So in the in runner, what happens? The permanent magnets, right? The permanent magnets, that is the rotor, is situated inside the stator, okay, within the stator, and it is always the rotor that rotates. Hence the name rotor, rotatory, right? So the rotor rotates, and rotor contains permanent magnets in the in runner. In the out runner also, the rotor contains permanent magnets, but the rotor is on the outside of the stator. The stator contains electromagnetic coils, right? Electromagnets, sorry, consists of electromagnets, which is built up of coils, right? And these coils are on the inside of the rotor, and it is always that the rotor that rotates. Okay, so main difference here is that in the outrunner, the outer part of the motor rotates, and in runner, the inner part of the motor rotates. As the name suggests, it's very simple to understand that. Any doubts so far? Do we have any doubts? Cool, cool. Let's proceed. All right. So we all know that when we apply a current through a coil, it will generate a magnetic field. Okay. And the magnetic field lines or the poles depend on the current direction. The same principle is used to understand the working of a BLDC. So in this diagram, you can see when this end is, you can see my pointer, right? When this end is at higher potential, that is positive, the current flows from this direction and then comes out from this direction. This end of the coil acts as a north pole, and this end acts as a south pole. And when you reverse this polarity, when I say reversing a polarity, what I mean is instead of positive, you give here a negative potential, and you give a positive potential. The poles are also reversed. North pole comes here, and south pole will come here. So let's go through that again. When you give a positive potential at this point and a negative potential at this point, current will flow, of course, right? But what we need to know is where will the north pole be and where will the south pole be situated. So when current flows in this direction, this is the north pole and this is the south pole. When you reverse the polarities, the poles are also reversed. All right. So that is how poles are formed in an electromagnet. Now that that is understood, let us get into the detail of how a PLDC functions. So in this video, is the video visible, guys? Somebody give me a confirmation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good, perfect. In this video, we'll be understanding how an outrunner motor functions. Okay, that's how you can see the outside part of the motor. You see this black part here? This is the permanent magnet that is situated on the rotor. It is a permanent magnet outside of the motor that is rotating. Right. So, which means this is the outrunner type of motor. Here we have a brushed DC motor, and you can see this dust being generated here. So, in a brushed DC motor, as the name suggests, it has carbon brushes to conduct electricity. Right. And when you conduct electricity using these carbon brushes, the carbon brushes wear out with time, and there's a lot of carbon dust that is formed in the motor. So this yellow color, yellowish orange particle that you see here, these are all carbon dust, and it goes and sits on the motor, and with time they destroy the motor. That is one of the main reasons why people started using BLDC motors instead of brushed motors, because the maintenance cost is a lot lesser in brushless DC motors. We will get to the advantages of BLDC motors over brushed motors in the coming few slides. For now, let's understand how a BLDC motor functions. Right. So this here is a rotor, and in this we have the north pole and the south pole. Inside the rotor, we have the stator, stator consists of, stator consists of 6 coils, but it's basically 3 coils since they're all connected to each other. In this, you can see, so orange coil here and this orange are interconnected. And green, these 2 green coils are interconnected. Same goes with the yellow coils here. Okay, so they're all interconnected. So when I give a current to this coil, it means this is also energized. I hope you all can see my pointer here. So for this illustration, we've labeled them coils A, B, and C. Okay, and here N and S we have our permanent magnets that is on the rotor. And so when you energized coil A, right? This is coil A, and when you energize this coil, when I say energize, is basically when you power it with electricity. That is when current flows through the coil. So when you give a negative potential here and a positive potential here, current flows, of course. Okay, it behaves as an electromagnet with this end as a south pole and this end as a north pole. So what happens? This is south pole, this is north pole. The north pole that is here from the permanent magnet is attracted towards this south pole. All right. So when coil A is energized, the opposite poles of the rotor and stator are attracted to each other as the as the rotor nears coil A, right now we can see that the north of the permanent magnet is close to is almost at the coil A, is next to coil A, right? So right when north pole of the permanent magnet reaches the south pole of the stator, what happens is that coil B is energized. So when coil B is energized, what happens? There is a south pole here again, and there's north pole here. So north and south will attract. The same thing is happening here as well. All right. So north pole is again attracted towards coil B, and the moment the rotor reaches coil B, what happens is that coil C is energized. And again, there's south pole here. So north pole is again attracted towards south pole. All right. So after this, what happens is that coil A is energized with the opposite polarity. Now remember how I told you that when you reverse the polarity, your poles are also reversed, right? So previously we had south pole here on the electromagnet. Now it has become north, and we have south pole here. So the north pole of the rotor has been attracted towards, let me just reverse that. So north pole has been attracted towards south again, and again it is being attracted towards coil B here. So the same thing keeps repeating again and again, and that is how a motor rotates. All right. So yes, now let me address this waveform that is here. This waveform basically tells us that which coil is energized when and at what point of time you're giving voltage to at this point what is happening is that coil A is energized. When coil A is energized, there is the potential at coil A, which is why it is at a higher potential here. Whereas coil B and C are at 0 level. Right. And the moment your rotor reaches coil A is de-energized and coil B is energized. So the potential of coil A fell down to 0 and the potential of coil B went up to 1 unit. Right, and then it waits till the moment where the rotor reaches coil B, and as soon as the rotor reaches coil B, coil C is energized. All right, coil C is energized, whereas coil A and B are still at 0 level. Once it reaches coil B, what happens? The polarity of coil A is reversed, which means potential goes to negative. So here you can see negative potential. and then as soon as it becomes 0, we have B entering negative potential. Soon after, we have coil C also entering negative potential. Yeah. So a humorous analogy of this could be the story of the donkey and the carrot, where the donkey tries to reach the carrot, but the carrot keeps getting out of reach. Right? It's very simple to that, because the moment the North Pole reaches South Pole, the current flowing through the coil is turned off, and the next coil is activated. So it's always like the donkey trying to reach the carrot, and the carrot is moving away and away. Right? So basically, it never reaches the South Pole because the poles keep changing. Right? So modern days brushless DC motors come in this type of configuration, where the rotor is in the position along the coil that pulls the rotor. At the same time, there is another coil that is pushing the rotor. Let's wait for that to come. Hold on, guys. Yeah. So this is how modern day North Poles are, modern days BLDC motors are. Because in this type of in the previous type of configuration, what happens that at any instant only one coil is energized, the other two coils are dead, which causes a reduction in power output of the BLDC motor. So what happens is that modern day BLDC motors have always have two coils that are energized simultaneously. So there is one coil that is attracting the rotor, whereas the other coil is repelling it. See on this diagram, on this motor, you can see here that we have South Pole here and North Pole here. So North is on the rotor here. So North and South is going to attract each other, whereas North and North is here is going to repel each other. So this coil here is going to repel this rotor, as a red arrow suggests, and the green is attraction. So it is going to attract and repel. The coils are going to attract and repel at the same time. Same goes with the waveform also. You can see how it works. So in this configuration, what happens is that the torque produced by the motor is always constant because there is attraction and repulsion. So there is never that point in a cycle where there's a high torque or a low torque. The torque always remains constant throughout the cycle. Now I am open to any questions regarding motors, BLDCs, all this. Anybody has any question can shoot.
So what are the differences between a brushless DC motor and induction motor?
I will get to that. We have a slide on that. We'll get to that. That fine?
Yeah, okay.
Mridul, yeah. Anybody else? Do we have any other doubts?
Nope. How the motor braking is happening in the BLTC?
See, Murugesh, we will be covering that in one of our workshops because it is too complicated for now for all the members of the club. So once we get to that part, we will definitely cover it.
Okay.
Because you want the ESCs and the motors both have to support them. It is every motor and ESCs do not support it. So we'll be covering that in later slides.
All right.
All right. Any other questions regarding working of a BLDC? Has everyone understood it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Okay. So now that everybody else has understood, I have one question. I have two questions basically. Okay. So in a brushless DC motor, everything is always about timing, right? You need to know which coil has to be energized when. Okay. So my two questions are, how do I know when to energize a coil, and how do I know which coil to energize? Come on, guys.
EAC will read the motor position while it spin. It will gives us the back EMF, so it will detect and it will fire the next coils.
Correct. Correct, Murugesh. Correct. So it is not just back EMF. We also have something called Hall effect sensor. Okay,
Yeah,
we will
correct.
be
Yeah.
covering that here. Hold on, guys. So yeah, you need to know which coil to energize and when to energize which coil, right? For that, what we use is a sensor called Hall effect sensor. In previous slide, we had covered that we have something called Hall effect sensors on the motors, right? So the Hall effect sensor, what it does, that it reads the magnitude and direction of magnetic field. So that is the purpose of the Hall effect sensor. It reads the magnitude, or it senses the magnitude and direction of a magnetic field. Okay, and that is how it determines the position of the rotor. And based on this information, the controller, that is the electronic speed controller, decides which coil to be energized when. So as the rotor rotates, we have the Hall effect sensor, which will sense the direction of magnetic field and the magnitude of magnetic field. Depending on that, our electronic speed controller will decide which coil has to be energized. So this is how the Hall effect sensor looks like, this green part here. It is always positioned below the stator in this configuration. All right, we'll move to the next slide. Yeah. So why go for brushless DC motors? Now there are three main reasons. Brushless DC motors have better performance and efficiency as compared to any brushed DC motor due to the involvement of electronic control, enabling high level control over the speed and position of the motor. Right. Now, a brushless DC motor lifespan is approximately 6 times higher than that of brushed DC motors. Right. And brushless DC motor produces comparatively low operating noise as compared to other motors of the same ratings. As in other motors, there is continuous contact of brushes, resulting in noise and sparking during contact. Whenever you want, uh, whenever you want to operate motors where there's a chance of presence of inflammable gases, we always go for BLDC motors because there is no sparking, unlike your brushed DC motors. And of course, there are the maintenance cost is reduced because of the absence of carbon dust, carbon brushes, sparking, all that. So now that we have covered brushless DC motors or the motor aspect in a drone, let us get to the next part, is who controls this motor? Who controls the brushless DC motor? Now, brushed DC motors do not generally require a controller, but your brushless DC motor always requires an electronic speed controller. That is how the speed of the motor is controlled. All right. So what you see here is a typical ESC. Electronic speed control is also called as an ESC. Okay. So what you see here on the diagram is a typical hobby style ESC looks like. It is rated at 35 amps and can be used on batteries up to 6 cells, having lithium polymer batteries having up to 6 cells. So the electronic speed controller on a drone is a hard working and a powerful component. The ESC connects the flight controller and the motor. So it is basically the bridge between a flight controller and the motor. Given that each brushless motor requires an ESC, a quadcopter will require 4 ESCs. These take the signal from the flight controller and power from the battery and then makes the brushless motor spin. Right. Although it sounds simple, it is anything but. An electronic speed controller can be designed with 3 essential components. One is the voltage regulator or the battery eliminator circuit, a processor, and the switching, which includes MOSFETs and FETs. The main function of this processor is to decode the data being provided to it from the receiver within the model, as well as to regulate the power to the motor using FETs. FET is basically field effect transistors. In an ESC, this transistor plays a key role by performing all the works. It observes the complete current and voltage of the motor as well as of a battery. This transistor works like a switch to control the current flow to throttle the electric motor. So you give throttle or a stick input using a transmitter. The same thing is converted into legible signals by the receiver and the transmitter, then which is then fed to the flight controller. So the flight controller then transmits this information to the electronic speed controller, which decides at what speed your motor should rotate at. So to understand the circuitry inside an ESC is something that is way beyond our scope, at least at this point of time. So what we'll do is just a basic run through as in what the circuitry inside the ESC looks like. So basic function of an ESC is to change the amount of power to the electric motor from the drone battery based upon the location of the throttle stick. Right. So current speed controllers different. So current speed controllers differ the power to the motor by fast switching the power on and off. Right. I will be explaining that in the present slide. And here the MOSFET transistor is used as a switch. Right. In this diagram, you can see S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, and S6. They are not switches. They're not actual switches. They're actually MOSFETs, which can be used as a switch. So instead of mechanical switches, we use MOSFETs as a switch here. And the amount at which it is switched is about 200 times a second. So the power to the motor is diverse by changing the amount of on time against the off time in a specified cycle. So here is a simple ESC circuit with a waveform diagram that may help with the description. And yeah, you can see that the coil placed here is in a star formation, star type of circuit. People from electronics background will be able to relate to it. Alright, and I say C1, C2, and C3, I mean coils 1, 2, and 3. In the motor, you might remember that we had 3 coils, coil A, B, C. Here we have coil 1, 2, 3. Right. So all coils are connected to VCC and ground. So you give a power supply to the ESC, right? A positive terminal and a negative terminal that comes directly from the battery. So this is that VCC and ground. All right. And we have 2 switches for every coil here. So in total, we have 6 switches. So they're not mechanical switches, though they might look like it, but they're actually MOSFET. So if you want current to pass through a particular coil, what we do is that let's just say you want to energize coils 1 and 3. Like I said in the previous slide, we will be always energizing 2 coils at once. Right? So let us energize coil 1 and 3 here. So to energize coil 1 and 3, what you do is you see the switch 2 here, S2. S2 is turned on. When S2 is turned on, so there is current passing through this point and it comes here and you need a positive potential here, right? And this is turned on already, S3. So if S2 and S3 is turned down, you will have current that is passing through coils 1 and 3. All right. And if you want to energize coils 3 and 2, you make current pass through this wire, right? And how do you do that? You either give a ground or you turn on this switch. Either S3 or S4 is turned on. So let's just say that S3 is turned on in this case. Okay, so you have VCC positive terminal here. And for the negative terminal, you will have to turn on switch 6. So when you turn on switch 6, what happens? There is current passing through coils 3 and coil 2. Similarly, you have the switching mechanism for coils 1 and 2. So that is how an ESC works. Does anybody have any doubt on working of an ESC? Anybody, any doubts? All right. Mridul, any doubts? Mridul is usually the one who
No.
has doubts. No doubts, Mridul?
No.
Cool. So we'll proceed with the next slide, which is now that we know how a motor is controlled, right? ESC is what controls the motor. We need to know how an ESC or a motor is powered. So it is powered by a battery. Okay. Now sticking on to drones, right? Drones are primarily fueled by lithium polymer batteries. I will be explaining what lithium polymer batteries are. So why we use lithium polymer is because they are able to store and deliver large amount of power in a short period of time, unlike other rechargeable batteries. So lithium polymer batteries are more commonly called as LiPo batteries. Li stands for lithium and Po stands for polymer. So LiPo batteries are rechargeable batteries that are based on the lithium ion technology, so which uses a polymer electrolyte instead of a liquid electrolyte, right? And high conductivity semi-solid, so which is basically a gel, is a polymer that is used to form this electrolyte. And other features of LiPo battery is that they have high energy density and high discharge rates. They're also very lightweight, which makes them a great candidate for RC applications. That is, putting them over drones or fixed wing air drones or hybrid VTOL aircrafts, or we have our single rotor drones. So lithium polymer batteries exist in terms of cells. Right? When I say battery, it is basically a couple of cells that are stacked together to form a battery, right? And each lithium polymer cell has a nominal voltage of about 3.7 volts. So if higher voltage required, these cells can be connected in series to form a single battery. Normally in drones, we use, let's just say, if it's a small drone of the micro category, we use a battery of around 3 to 4 cell. 3 to 4 cell, what you do is, if it is 3 to 4 cell, you will get a voltage, a nominal voltage of about 11.1, right? If it is 3 cell. Yeah. So the voltage affects the brushless motor's RPM directly. Now, let's just say that I am using a motor rated at 1000 kV, right? So when I say 1000 kV, it means for each volt that I provide to the motor, it can rotate at a speed of 1000 RPM. So if I give it 1 volt, it will rotate at a speed of 1000 RPM. Okay. And if I give it 10 volts, it will rotate at an RPM of 10 at the speed of 10,000 RPM. RPM stands for rotations per minute. Okay. So 10 volts will give me 10,000 RPM. Okay. Now when I say 10,000 RPM, it is basically when you rotate the motor under no load condition and at ideal conditions. Okay. So you could use a higher cell count battery to increase your quadcopter speed. if your motor or AC and other electronics, of course, if they support this higher voltage. Okay. So the capacity of a lithium polymer battery is measured in terms of milliamp hours. It is something that is very common. When you buy a phone, what we look for, what at least I look for, the first thing in a phone is the capacity of a battery, capacity of the mobile or capacity of the battery that is on the phone, right? And battery capacity is always measured in terms of milliamp hours. So mAh is basically, it's also called mAh, like milliamp hours. And mAh is basically an indication of how much current you can draw from the battery for an hour until it's empty. Okay, so you can call it an analogy to your fuel tank in a car. The bigger the fuel tank you have in a car, the longer you can run it for. Same thing goes for drones or the lithium polymer batteries as well. The larger your capacity is, the longer you can fly for. But of course, there's a lot of other things that you need to consider here. With a larger uh, capacity of the drone, what happens is that your the weight of the battery increases. Right? When you increase the weight, the downward force that is acting on the drone is increased. So you'll have to provide more thrust. Right? You'll have to provide more thrust to counteract that weight.
Arthan, you muted yourself.
All right, I think there was some connection drop. Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
back.
Hear me
You're
now?
back. You're back.
Okay, just hold on. All right, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, very, very clearly.
Cool, perfect. So I was talking about milliamp hours and how it resembles the fuel tank in a car. The higher the capacity of a battery, the longer you can fly it for. But of course, you will have to consider a lot of other factors like the weight and the size of the battery and stuff like that, right? So, like I said, increasing your battery capacity might give you a longer flight time, but it will also make your drone or make your aircraft heavier in weight and larger in physical size. So it's always a trade-off between capacity and weight that affects the flight time and agility of your aircraft. So lithium polymer batteries for quadcopters come with a C rating. Okay, C stands for Coulomb. So by knowing the C rating and the capacity of a battery, we can, in theory, not in theory, calculate the safe, continuous maximum discharge current of the lithium polymer battery. So the formula for calculating that is, hold on. Yeah. So the measure of safe and continuous maximum discharge current that can be given out or supplied by a battery is equal to your C rating times the battery capacity. So let's just say that your battery has a C rating of 10 C, right? And your battery has a capacity of 1000 mAh, right? 1000 mAh is basically 1 Ah, right? 1000 milliamp hours, right? So 1000 milliamp, if you convert it to amperes, it is 1 amp. So 1 amp hours. So in that case, you will get your maximum continuous discharge current by your lithium polymer battery that is on your drone. Next, we
Is the
have.
C rate? Excuse me.
Yeah.
So is the C rating mentioned in every battery is physically?
Yes, it is. That was Mridul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mridul, I'll just take an example of the drone that I presently use is a drone racing quad. Okay, so it's a quadcopter. It has 4 propellers, 4 motors, 4 ESCs, and it is basically used for racing drones, right? And the battery I use on that is a 4-cell battery, so that gives me 16.8 volts, and the battery is rated at 100 C. right? 100C, and the capacity of the battery is 1550 mAh. So that will give me a maximum of almost 155 amperes from the battery, right? So the battery that I own presently can give me that amount of current. So yes, to answer your question, every battery will have C rating mentioned on it. On this diagram, I think, is it visible? Yeah, you can, hold on. Can you see this 25C written here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the C rating of this battery. So this is how a typical lithium polymer battery looks like. You always have a high current connector here. So it's basically, this connector is called XT60 connector, typically used on lithium polymer batteries nowadays. And here you have a 12 gauge cable that is capable of carrying currents of that order. Then you have hardwired LEDs that is connecting the cells on the battery. So the most significant difference between a lithium ion and a lithium polymer battery is the chemical electrolyte between their positive and negative electrodes, right? In lithium polymer batteries, it is not a liquid. Okay. Instead, lithium polymer technology uses one of the three forms: a dry solid, which was largely phased out during the prototype years of lithium polymer batteries, long ago when they began prototyping lithium polymer batteries. Then another type we have is a porous chemical compound or a gel-like electrolyte. The most popular among these is the last one, that is a gel-like electrolyte. So they also have a low discharge rate, self-discharge rate, which is about 5% per month. So when you ideally, when you keep your battery idle, right, without using it for a long time, then it will self-discharge by its own at a rate of 5% per month. So this is something that is a special characteristic of lithium polymer batteries. They have a very low self-discharge rate. Right. Then we have this interesting video. Just go through this, guys. So this is hold on. Okay, so this is a lithium polymer battery rated at a capacity of 1100 mAh. Okay, and it got punctured. And this is what happens when a lithium polymer battery is punctured. It explodes in air and catches fire. So yeah, that is how it happens. Just to give you an idea, if I were to use this battery on my drone, it would give me a flight time of about 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, so it is considered as a very small battery. Okay, if a small battery of this capacity is able to explode in this way, so imagine the amount of damage a larger battery can do. For example, if you talk about 16,000 mAh batteries that are used on agriculture drones, two such batteries are used on agriculture drones. Imagine if something happens to that battery mid-flight. Imagine the condition of the drone. Right, now we'll answer why use lithium polymer batteries? Why not any other type of battery? So one reason is it has a high energy density per kgs. So when I mean energy density is that when you pack 1 kgs of lithium polymer, the what amount of energy can it give out? So that is the energy density per kg of lithium polymer batteries, and it has a very high energy density. Right now, it has high C ratings. Okay, so it can discharge currents that your lithium ion or any other battery cannot. So that is one reason why you see Oppo and OnePlus nowadays advertising phones that can completely charge their mobile phones within 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Now, that is not possible in lithium-ion batteries. That is only possible on lithium polymer batteries. So all mobile phone manufacturers, smartphone manufacturers have shifted to lithium polymer batteries. That is how they are able to achieve this kind of fast charging. Otherwise, with lithium ion, it is not possible. Another reason why people have started using lithium polymer is because they are versatile and they come in multiple shapes and sizes, unlike your lithium ion batteries. It's quite difficult to mend them into shapes of your choice. But with lithium polymer, it is slightly on the better side. To a certain extent, it is resistant to physical trauma. Of course, if you try to puncture the battery using a pin or using a screwdriver, something like that, a sharp object, of course, it will explode. But certain crashes, right? If you crash your drone with the battery on it, sometimes it does not, affect the battery much. But if it is a major crash, yes, it will affect. But compared to your lithium-ion batteries, a lot more resistant to physical trauma. So we have a few more slides for today, but I don't think we'll be able to cover it. So we will be covering the next few slides. We have transmitter receiver and how the radio control system in a drone works. Then we'll be talking about flight controller in a drone and how that works. But anyways, we'll keep that for next week since it's already 4:04. So yeah, now we are open to any questions from the participants. Any questions from any topic that has been covered?
Bro, how to know what gauge wire has to be used for specific current consumption of drones? Because
Yogesh,
unless
regarding the building part, we'll be covering them in our workshops.
okay.
Any other questions, guys? Okay, before we go on to that, see, the thing is, whatever the Arthan explained, right? So this is like the theory of whatever components that we'll be using during the building phase. Okay. Now, to be honest, the things that Arthan explained, even I didn't know. When I honestly didn't know the theory about the brushless DC motors or whatever. Because whoever came and taught me about planes or aero modeling, they never taught me all this, and I'm learning it only for the first time. And it can definitely be a little complicated. Okay, but this is only like you don't really have to know so much also. Archana explaining it because in case someone ever asks you in future about do you know this, do you know that, he's teaching you the absolute basics. Okay, now when we're actually building a drone, you just need to know what the function of each component is, that which also he covered. Now remember when Archana talked about the drone motions, about different yaw and how to for different motions, the different motors get different thrust, right? So that's all actually controlled by the ESC also, and ESC is electronic speed controller. Okay, so it just basically controls the speed of the motors. So using this simple terminology also, you should be able to explain at least the basics of what the function is, and that's what Arthan covered. And since he's given you like a detailed explanation, and this meeting is also being recorded, we will definitely post this, and if you ever want this as a future reference, you can find it on the YouTube channel itself. Okay, now does anyone have questions related to what Arthan spoke today, apart from this?
Yeah, I have a doubt.
Yes, Jay.
One ESC controls one motor or all four of the motors or any number of motors?
See, Jayan, each motor will require one ESC, right? But today we also have 4-in-1 ESCs or 6-in-1 ESCs, wherein there's one PCB board and there are 4 or 6 ESCs integrated on it. But yes, each motor will have to be wired to an individual ESCs. If does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so when we actually do the drone building thing, we'll be using the basic thing, that is one ESC, one motor, right, Arthan?
Yes.
Anyone else? Questions?
Yeah, bro. In case we use a 40 amp current consuming motor, but I have two 20 amps ESCs, can I do it parallel?
Murugesh,
I mean, can I use
don't hear you.
two
Can you
20
repeat your
amp
question?
ESCs parallel and run the 40 amp motor.
Murgesh, your voice is breaking. Could you please repeat your question?
Okay. I have two 20 amp ESCs.
Yeah.
And my motor is consuming 40 amps max. So I am planning to parallel these two ESCs to power that motor. Can I use that?
No, that is not possible, Murugesh.
Okay. So also a single ESC cannot be powered to multiple motors, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
Because the rotor is not always at the same point in two motors, right? It's always
Yeah,
at different points.
super.
So the ESC has to read that using the Hall sensor and the back EMF and then give inputs to the motor.
Okay.
Yes. Anyone else? Amridul, Nidhi, Ayush, any questions?
Bro, what is the real life cycle of LiPo battery? I want to compare whether lithium ion or LiPo battery is greater in life cycles.
Lithium polymer has a lesser life cycle. That is one of the drawbacks of lithium polymer batteries. But
Okay.
speaking of the exact count, lithium polymer batteries can give you a life cycle of about 200 to 250 cycles if operated and maintained well enough.
Okay. In lithium ion batteries, what may be the life cycle?
I am not really aware of it, but I will get back to you on it.
Yeah, sure.
Since lithium polymer is our area of interest.
Okay.
Nidhi, you had a question?
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying I have no question.
Okay. Anyone else with the questions?
Hello.
Yes, Karthik, go ahead.
Like we can use zinc ion battery instead of lithium polymer battery, right? Like lithium polymer battery is harmful to environment. It's being also used as alternative. So,
sorry, Karthik, I didn't get your question.
like instead of lithium polymer battery or lithium ion battery, we can also use zinc ion battery, right? Like lithium is quite harmful to the environment.
Lithium, when you use lithium, it is not harmful, but of course, discarding lithium is a challenge.
Discarding is harmful. So
yeah, it's a it's a toxic metal, and not just that. Even when a lithium polymer cell is punctured, there's a lot of toxic gases that has been released into the environment. But as far as zinc oxide batteries, right?
yeah, yes.
Yeah, I have never heard zinc oxide batteries being used on drones. One reason is because you will not get this kind of energy density, right? Because you need a lot of zinc oxide batteries to compensate for the amount of energy that you get from a lithium polymer batteries. So it is not really practical and efficient.
Okay.
Yes. Anyone else with questions? Thor the dog. Do you have a question?
Yeah, why do batteries puff?
Sorry?
Why do batteries puff?
Why do batteries puff?
Yeah.
The chemicals inside lithium polymer batteries have a certain life cycle, right? That is one reason why they puff. Second reason is because when you over discharge batteries or when you overcharge the batteries, right, you harm the chemical composition inside the battery. That is how they start puffing. The chemicals inside start to evolve, and the gases start building up inside. That's how the batteries start puff.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Could you tell me your name, please?
My name is Joy.
Okay, Joy.
Yeah.
Okay, Joy. Can you tell me what you're studying?
I'm studying 8th class.
Okay, wow. Welcome. Can I know how you came across this?
Actually, I started this hobby 2 years ago.
Okay.
I already built a drone.
Okay, that's great.
And now I'm getting into the FPV.
Right.
That's how.
Joy, can you tell me about how you came across this webinar?
I saw your message in the group.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Joy. We are really delighted to have you here. Yeah, guys, continuing. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, bro. Does every BLDC motors consist of both Hall effect sensor and a back EMF thing, or something special on that?
See, back EMF, you don't really need a sensor for back EMF. It is directly connect. It basically measures the potential in each coil. The ESC measures that potential. But
Okay.
as far as back EMF is concerned, the problem with back EMF is that you don't get the accuracy, right, for to determine the position of a rotor. That is why we use Hall effect sensors.
Okay.
Murgesh, can
So,
you please? Okay, yeah, finish.
yeah, you came to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to like just know. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh my God. Okay, I'm near to Chennai. I'm working as a software engineer.
Oh wow. Okay. So you finished engineering itself.
Yeah.
And may I
I
know how you come across our webinar?
I actually make planes actually.
Okay.
So while making the planes, I felt like, oh, so it's so amazing. So I came to this group and start continuing this learning. Yeah.
May I know from where you got the link or to the group, or did someone tell you about it?
I bought IMAX V6 charger. So what your link? You mean the meeting link?
Yeah, I mean no, the group, WhatsApp group. You said,
Yeah,
right?
I am in Rago group, KR2 tech
Okay.
group.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're teaching very well, bro. That's interesting.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
that, Murugesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No. Is there any other meeting in further days?
Every Fridays we will be conducting meetings. We'll keep you updated on the group.
Okay, sure.
Yes. Shreyas, Spurti, KP, do you have any questions?
Not any, bro.
All right. Spook?
Any questions?
Okay. KP?
No.
All right. Jayant, any other questions?
No, that was it.
All right. Adityan, can we continue with the discussion now?
Discussion of what?
Core team?
Sorry?
Core team.
You can start off with that.
Yes. All right, guys. So right now,